Captain Rhys Calder stood on the open landing field of Redwind Outpost, watching the horizon glow in deep red light as the twin suns dropped behind the cliffs. The world always looked as if it were burning, but the humans who lived here had learned. Long ago, that Redwind was not a place of danger. It was a place of unexpected alliances. Rhys had been stationed here for a year, helping maintain peace with the nearby Tanuk Tribal Alliance, a respected alien species known for their honor and strong family bonds. When the message arrived that the tribal chief wanted a human envoy to join their upcoming caravan journey, Rhys did not hesitate. He respected the Tanuk. They were straightforward, loyal, and tough enough to survive this harsh planet. As the Tanuk convoy approached the outpost, Rhys noticed their familiar formation: large hover wagons carrying supplies, warriors walking beside them, and banners fluttering behind. At the front rode Chief Varrock Stonefist, a broad-shouldered alien with dark markings that showed age and rank. Rhys had worked with him many times, and the two shared deep mutual respect. When the chief arrived, he greeted Rhys with a firm nod. "Human Calder, your presence honors our path." Rhys gave a small bow. "I am ready to travel with your convoy, Chief. I will assist however I can." Varrick's eyes glowed softly, the way Tanuka eyes did when they were pleased. "Good. But before we begin, I must speak of tradition. A long journey must not be walked without balance. One travels with a companion." Rhys expected that the chief would assign one of his warriors, perhaps an experienced scout or a young guard seeking training. Instead, the chief stepped aside, revealing a woman who had been standing behind him. She was tall and graceful for her species, with smooth dark patterns across her face and bright silver eyes. She carried no weapon, only a small satchel and a calm, thoughtful expression. "This is Sira Varrick," Chief Varrick said. "My wife. She will accompany you." Rhys froze in surprise. "Your wife, Chief? Are you certain? I do not want to disrespect your customs." Varrick lifted a hand. "There is no disrespect. I choose her because she sees what others do not. This journey carries risk, and Sira's insight may save lives. She is a strategist, quiet but sharp. You will walk beside her." Sira stepped forward and offered a polite nod. "Captain Calder, the chief trusts you. That is enough for me." Her voice was calm, almost musical, and it carried a strange depth. Rhys had seen many Tanuk warriors, but Sira was different. There was something measured and observant in the way she stood, as if she was always studying patterns only she could see. "If you are certain," Rhys said gently, "then I will do my best to honor this partnership." Varrick placed a hand on Rhys's shoulder. "Good. The path ahead needs both human and Tanuk sight. Walk well, Captain." The convoy began its journey into the crimson forest that covered the northern region of Redwind. The trees rose tall like twisted spires, their bark glowing faintly under the twin suns. Strange lights moved within the branches, harmless insects that looked like floating sparks. Rhys walked slightly ahead, scanning the area, while Sarah walked beside him in complete silence. At first, Rhys assumed she was simply shy. But as the path grew narrow and rough, he noticed she was observing everything: the wind direction, the shifting light, the movements in the forest. It wasn't the nervous attention of someone afraid. It was the sharp, patient attention of someone who had been trained to read danger long before it appeared. After almost an hour of silence, Sira finally spoke, and her voice was soft enough that Rhys almost did not hear her. "You look in all directions before you take a step," she said quietly. "Human movements are interesting. You do not move like other species." Rhys gave a small smile. "On Earth, we grow up learning to be alert. Humans are adaptable. It's our best skill." "Adaptable," she repeated. Yes, that word fits well. They continued walking. The forest grew darker as the suns dipped lower, and crimson shadows stretched over the path. The convoy lit small lanterns that floated above the wagons. Casting warm yellow circles on the ground, Sira continued studying him, her eyes focused but not harsh. Rhys felt her gaze but did not mind it. There was curiosity in it, not judgment. Finally, after another long silence, she spoke again, this time more quietly. almost like a confession. I always dreamed of a human ally. Reese stopped walking for a moment, surprised by the words. He turned to her gently. Why a human of all species? Sierra's expression softened, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Long ago, before I became the chief's wife, I studied ancient texts from many worlds. Stories about humans were rare, but they stood out. They described your people as unpredictable in the best way. Courage where others would turn back. Compassion, even when threatened. And the ability to stand with others without expecting anything in return. She looked ahead, her voice steady. For years I wondered if those stories were only myths. But when humans first came to Redwind and helped our tribes during the drought, I believed the stories again. Reese felt a quiet warmth at her words. Most humans try to do good when we can. We're not perfect, but we try. I know, she murmured. That is why I said what I said. They resumed walking, the atmosphere between them gentler now. Reese felt like he understood her more. She wasn't just a companion for tradition. She was someone who had been waiting, maybe hoping for a connection that crossed species and culture. But Redwind was never peaceful for long. A sudden sound echoed from the cliffs to their right, a faint metallic click. Reese's instincts flared instantly. He raised his hand, signaling for the convoy to pause. The warriors stopped, tightening their grips on their staffs and spears. Sierra looked toward the cliffs as well, her voice calm. Something watches us. Reese stepped slightly in front of her. Stay behind me, just in case. Several small shapes shifted along the high ledges, almost blending into the rock. They moved with unnatural precision, like machines rather than living things. Reese narrowed his eyes. The shapes withdrew as quickly as they had appeared. Chief Varric came to the front. What did you see? Drones, Reese said. Silent ones, not local wildlife. Not tonic tech either. Varric growled under his breath. Then we are being followed. Sierra stepped forward. These mountains are known for hiding watchers. But these movements, they do not belong to any tribe. Reese felt tension tighten in his chest. We should keep moving, but slower, and we need scouts watching the cliffs. Varric nodded and gave orders. The convoy adjusted its formation. Sierra moved closer to Reese now, her expression serious. You felt them before you saw them, she murmured. Humans truly sense danger in a different way. It's training, Reese said softly. But maybe also instinct. That instinct may save us, she replied. As they entered a narrow canyon, the sky darkened completely. The red glow faded, replaced by cold blue shadows. The cliffs towered above them, too tall and too quiet. Reese scanned every edge, every crack, every shifting grain of sand. The convoy walked carefully. Even the Tanuk warriors, usually proud and steady, kept their voices low. Then Sierra touched Reese's arm lightly, her voice barely a whisper. Something is wrong. Before he could ask what she meant, a faint humming sound filled the air. Reese looked up. Dozens of small, dark drones hovered above the canyon, almost invisible in the dim light. They were not attacking, not yet, but they were watching, studying, counting. Reese felt Sarah step closer, her voice tight but calm. These are no scouts. They belong to an enemy with a larger plan. What enemy? Reese asked. She looked at the drones with quiet certainty. One that has waited too long to rise, and one that fears what humans can do. The drones retreated into the darkness. The canyon fell silent again. Reese exhaled slowly. Something told him this journey had changed forever, and Sierra's earlier words echoed through his mind. I always dreamed of a human ally. Now he understood why the threat was real. The danger was growing. And the Tanuk chief had not chosen his wife by mistake. She had chosen Reese long before the convoy ever began. The canyon walls grew tighter as the Tanuk convoy moved farther inside, the air growing colder and heavier with each step. The lanterns floating above the wagons flickered as if something invisible disturbed the air around them. Reese walked with one hand near his sidearm, though he hoped he would not need it. The Tanuk preferred peace, and so did he. But Redwind was a world where peace was often tested. Sierra stayed near him, her sharp silver eyes constantly scanning the area. Reese noticed she walked with quiet confidence, not as a warrior, but as someone who understood danger far before it arrived. Her calmness strengthened him. She was not fearless, but she understood fear better than most. It made her steady. Chief Varric walked at the rear, giving orders to his warriors to spread out along the canyon edge. They moved silently, stepping with the discipline of trained guards. Reese could hear the faint click of their boots echoing like distant percussion. Even the forest insects were quiet now, as if the whole world held its breath. Reese kept replaying the sight of the drones in his mind, dozens of them watching. Intelligent. Drones did not appear alone. They came in groups controlled by something larger. But who or what could deploy such machines in Tanuk lands without the chief's knowledge? Sira seemed to sense his thoughts. "Your mind is restless," she said softly. Reese gave a small sigh. "I'm trying to understand who would dare target your convoy." Her expression tightened. "I fear it is not a new threat. It may be an old enemy we hoped was gone." "Who?" Sira hesitated, then lowered her voice. "The Iron Dominion. They once tried to force control over the frontier tribes. They believe strength comes from ruling others. They see our freedom as a problem." Reese frowned. "Dominion technology usually has clear markings. Those drones were blank." "Exactly," she replied. "They hide in shadows. They use unmarked machines. They move quietly until they strike." She paused, her eyes narrowing. "And now they watch us." Reese felt a cold weight in his chest. If the Dominion truly returned, the entire frontier was at risk, not only the Tanuk. And humans, though new to this region, had already made powerful enemies without meaning to. Their diplomacy had disrupted long-standing territorial lines. Not everyone welcomed that. A distant metallic scrape echoed from above, snapping Reese out of his thoughts. He raised a hand, signaling the convoy to stop again. The warriors froze in place, their glowing eyes scanning the cliffs. The scrape came against low. Deliberate like metal sliding across stone, Reese could not see any movement, but he could feel it as strange pressure in the air. As if dozens of sensors were aimed at them, Sira stepped closer, her whisper steady. "They are positioning themselves." Reese nodded. "We need to move out of the canyon. This place is a trap." But before anyone could take a step, a sharp blue beam shot down from the top of the cliff. Striking the ground only a few feet from Reese, dust exploded upward, and the wagon shook. Chief Varric shouted, "Shields up!" Warriors activated small personal shields, thin glowing barriers forming around their arms. Reese grabbed Sira's hand to pull her back behind a boulder as more beams rained down. The drones had returned, this time with precision. The canyon lit up with flashes of blue light, illuminating the frightened faces of traders and warriors alike. Reese peeked from behind the boulder and saw dozens of drones descending like a swarm of steel locusts. Each moved with unnatural coordination, scanning targets before firing. He pulled Sira closer. "Are you all right?" She nodded, her breath steady despite the chaos. "We must not scatter. That is what they want." Reese glanced at the convoy. Some of the wagons were already smoking. Warriors tried to shield the traders, but the drones were too fast. They needed a plan, a real plan. Sira suddenly touched Reese's arm. "You have the instinct humans are known for. Use it now." Exhaled slowly, grounding himself. She believed in him far more than he believed in himself at that moment. But he could not stand still and watch the convoy be destroyed. He looked at the canyon walls, the glowing mineral lines embedded in the stone. Redwind's cliffs were filled with dust that interfered with sensors and natural defense. And one humans had studied before. "We can blind them," Reese said. "The cliffs hold mineral dust. If we release it into the air, it will block their targeting systems." Chief Varric overheard as he approached with 2 guards trying to hold the drones back. "How?" "Explosive charges," Reese said quickly. "You have blasting tools for clearing rock paths, right?" "Of course." "Then set them along the canyon walls. Not to destroy, just to create dust storms." Varric's eyes glowed with admiration. Human thinking. Fast and wild. Sira stepped forward, her voice strong. I will lead the placement. I know the safest points. Reese grabbed her wrist gently. It's too dangerous. It is more dangerous to lose this convoy, she said, her tone firm but calm. Trust me, as I trust you. Reese hesitated only a moment before letting go. Stay low. Move fast. Sira nodded and signaled several warriors to follow her. They dashed along the canyon edges, avoiding drone fire as best they could. Reese watched her movements, graceful, determined, fearless in a quiet way. He then joined Verak to coordinate the defense. Hold them off until the charges are placed, Reese said. Once the dust goes up, their targeting will fail. Verak clasped Reese's shoulder. You are more Tanuk than some of my own warriors. Reese smiled tightly. Let's hope that's a good thing. The battle intensified. Drones flew lower, firing beams that shook the ground. Warriors deflected what they could, but their shields were weakening. One wagon tipped onto its side, and traders rushed to secure the supplies inside. Reese fired short. Precise shots at the drones, not to destroy, but to distract them from the workers placing charges. He saw Sira climbing a narrow ledge with surprising agility, placing a device against the mineral-rich rock. She signaled to him from afar, and he nodded. Understanding her silent message, "We're ready," he shouted to Verak. "Detonate." The chief raised a thick metal baton and struck the activation pad. A series of controlled booms tore through the canyon walls. For a moment, everything went silent, then massive clouds of fine red dust burst outward. Filling the air like swirling fog, the drones panicked. Their beams flickered. Their flight paths wobbled. Their formation broke, Reese shouted. Now, take them down. The Tanuk warriors charged with renewed strength, striking the now-blind drones with precision. Reese shot several out of the sky as they spun uncontrollably. Sira returned to the convoy, her face covered in dust, but her eyes shining with fierce determination. The dust storm thickened until nothing above was visible. The drone's sensors failed completely. Soon their hum faded, and the canyon grew quiet against a quiet. Sira approached Reese slowly, breathing deeply. Your plan saved many lives. Reese shook his head. It was your guidance. You knew where the rock would break safely. Without you, the explosions could have collapsed the whole canyon. She met his eyes, her voice soft but firm. We acted together. That is how alliances are forged. Before Reese could answer, a faint crackling sound echoed from one of the broken drones near his feet. It emitted a final transmission, projecting a small holographic symbol into the air, the mark of the Iron Dominion. Chief. Verak stared at it with a heavy expression. So it is true. Our old enemy rises again, Sira whispered. They will not stop with this convoy. This was only a test. Reese felt a cold determination settle inside him. Then we prepare for more. Sira looked at him, her eyes steady with trust. Human Calder, you do not understand yet. They fear you. They fear what humans represent. Adaptability. Courage. Change. He nodded slowly. Then they're right to worry. As the dust settled, the convoy prepared to move out again, but the journey ahead was no longer a peaceful one. The Dominion had marked them, and Reese knew this was only the beginning. Sira walked beside him once more. Her quiet voice broke the silence. This is why I dreamed of a human ally. Not for battle, for hope. And Reese, for the first time since the attack began, allowed himself to breathe, because now he understood that she had never been just the chief's wife. She had been waiting for someone who could change the direction of this war before it even began. The dust storm stayed in the canyon long after the drones had fallen silent. The fine red particles floated in slow circles, glowing faintly under the lantern light. Reese waited for the air to clear before giving a signal for the convoy to move. The Tanuk warriors stood guard with tense expressions, their shields still warm from the earlier blasts. Everyone knew the attack wasn't the end. It was simply a warning. Sira stood beside Reese at the front of the convoy. Her hair and markings were covered with red dust, but her posture remained calm. Reese admired her strength. Many would have been shaken after the assault, She held her focus like someone trained for far greater trials. Chief Varric approached, placing a heavy hand on Rhys's shoulder. "We live because of your plan. The Tanuk honor this." Rhys shook his head gently. "We all acted together, and Sira led the charges." Varric nodded proudly. "My wife sees far, but even she could not have done this without a human who thinks in ways we do not expect." Sira gave Rhys a small smile, the kind that carried warmth even in the chilled canyon air. "We move now. The canyon is no longer safe. If the Dominion attacked once, they may attack again," Rhys agreed. "We need open ground, and we need to reach your village. We'll be safer with more warriors." The convoy moved out, leaving the broken drones scattered on the canyon floor. For hours they walked under the dim evening sky. The twin moons rose, casting silver light on the terrain. The red dust in the air shimmered like floating stars as they crossed into the wide plains. Sira finally spoke softly, her voice drifting on the cold breeze. "The Dominion does not strike lightly. They always have a purpose. They attack to measure us, to see how we defend ourselves. To learn about you, Captain." Rhys slowed his steps. "About me?" "Yes," she said. "The drones watched you first. You reacted faster than any warrior. You protected those who could not fight. They marked you." Rhys frowned. "Why would they care about one human?" "Because one human can change many paths," Sira replied gently. "That is what the old texts say. It is why I always dreamed of meeting one." Rhys felt her words settle inside him like a quiet flame. He had never thought of himself as someone who changed anything. He simply did what felt right, step by step. But Sira believed in something larger. Somehow that belief now rested on his shoulders. As the night deepened, strange lights flickered on the distant hills, blue flashes, faint but unnatural. Rhys stiffened. More drones? Sira watched the lights quietly. Not drones. Something bigger. Varric arrived quickly. "We must reach the ridge before dawn. Beyond it lies the outer base. Humans built it when they first came to Redwind. If danger grows, that base may be our last refuge." The base had been inactive for months, used only for supply drops, but its defenses were strong. If the Dominion wanted to surround the convoy, the ridge had to be crossed before they closed in. They marched quickly, though exhaustion tugged at everyone's steps. The traders whispered anxiously, the warriors formed tight walls around the wagons, and Sira moved silently beside Rhys, reading every sound and shadow. By the time the first pale line of dawn touched the sky, they reached the ridge. Rhys climbed the last slope and looked ahead. The outer base stood on the plain below, silver structures glowing under morning light. It was old, but sturdy. With large gates and strong steel walls, relief washed over him. But before he could signal the convoy forward, Sira grabbed his arm gently. "Wait." Rhys immediately froze. "What do you sense?" Sira pointed toward the silent base. "Listen." Rhys strained his ears. At first, he heard nothing, just the soft wind over stone. But then, beneath the quiet, came a faint humming noise. Slow, mechanical, heavy. His eyes widened. "They're already there." Chief Varric reached the top of the ridge, saw the tension in their faces, and looked toward the base. His markings darkened in anger. "The Dominion is bold. They dare to enter human territory." Rhys clenched his fists. "Then we take it back." Before they could make a plan, a low rumble shook the ground. A dark metallic shape rose from behind the base, an enormous transport ship, black as midnight, with red lights pulsing along its sides. It hovered like a giant predator, engines humming with cold precision. Sira whispered, "This is no scouting machine. This is a command ship." Ship projected a sharp beam of red light onto the ground, scanning the plains. Rhys stepped back instinctively. This was the Dominion's full strength, not the stealthy drones from earlier. Varric growled. "We cannot fight that alone." Rhys glanced at Sira. "We need to get closer. There might still be humans inside the base. If the Dominion took it, we need to free them." Sira looked worried, but nodded. "We must be careful." Rhys organized a small group including Sira and several warriors to approach quietly, while the rest of the convoy remained hidden behind the ridge. They moved through patches of tall grass, staying low, moving with care. The base loomed larger with every step, its walls casting long shadows across the plain. As they neared the side gate, Reese saw signs of forced entry. The metal door was bent inward, scorch marks along the edges. The Dominion had broken in with brute force. Inside the walls, faint voices echoed. Reese signaled the group to halt, then peeked around the entrance. Dominion machine stall. Spider-like constructs were crawling across the courtyard, scanning every corner. Beside them stood Dominion soldiers wearing dark helmets and smooth armor. Their posture was rigid, their movements calculated. Sira whispered, "They captured the base without resistance. The humans inside may be imprisoned." Reese felt his heart tighten. "We can't leave them." He looked at the machines again, calculating every weakness. The dust storm trick might not work in the open plains. The enemy was too strong. They needed another advantage. Humans survived by thinking differently. He looked at Sira. "You said the Dominion fears change?" "Yes, then let's give them something unpredictable." He explained his plan quickly, and Sira's eyes brightened with understanding. "You want to use the base's old defense grid," she said. "But it has been inactive for months." Reese pointed to the side control tower. "If I get inside, I can restart it." The Dominion would never expect humans to power up a base they thought was abandoned. Varric nodded. "Our warriors will create a distraction." "No," Reese said firmly. "If they fight now, we'll lose them. Sira and I will go alone. Fewer footsteps means less chance of being detected." Sira stepped forward without hesitation. "Then we go." The chief stared at her with deep concern. "Sira, this is dangerous." "I know," she said calmly. "But this is a moment where we must stand with humans, as our stories once said." Reese felt humbled, seeing the trust between them. "We'll return," he promised. They slipped into the base through a narrow maintenance hatch. The inside smelled of dust and old machinery. Emergency lights glowed faintly. They crept through corridors, avoiding the mechanical sounds of the Dominion patrols. Reese remembered the base layout from his training days, guiding Sira through turns and staircases. Finally, they reached the control tower. Reese hurried to the main console, brushing dust off old panels. Sira watched the doorway alert. How long will it take? Not long if the systems still work. He pressed the activation switch. The console sparked, then hummed to life. Old screens flickered, showing faded images of the base's defenses turrets. Shield emitters, perimeter alarms. Reese worked quickly. "If I can reroute power from the generators, we can turn everything on at once. The shock will hit the Dominion before they even realize the system is awake." Sira gave him a small nod. "Do it." Reese entered final commands, his fingers moving fast. Suddenly, alarms blared across the base. Dominion machines screeched in confusion. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. Reese yelled, "Hold on!" The ground vibrated as shield towers reactivated, sending waves of energy across the courtyard. Turrets emerged from the walls, turning sharply toward the Dominion forces. A bright pulse shot from the main cannon, striking the command ship overhead. The ship's engines sputtered, losing stability. Sira watched in awe. "You woke the sleeping giant." Reese grabbed her hand. "We need to go." They rushed down the tower stairs as the Dominion forces scrambled. Machines malfunctioned under the sudden surge. Soldiers tried to retreat, but were trapped between rising barriers. Outside the ridge, Varric saw the base light up and roared with pride. The humans rise. Move now. The Tanuk warriors charged across the plain to support the base. The Dominion, caught off guard, retreated toward their damaged ship. The massive vessel lifted shakily, sparks flying from its engines. It tilted, rising just enough to escape into the upper sky before vanishing into the clouds. Silence settled slowly over the plain. Reese and Sira exited the gate together, breathless but safe. The convoy rushed down the ridge, cheering. Varric met them halfway, pulling Reese into a tight embrace. "You turned defeat into victory," Chief said with deep pride. Reese shook his head. Looking at Sira, "We did it together." Sira stepped beside him, her silver eyes warm. The dream of a human ally was never a dream alone. It was a path waiting to be walked. Today, we walked it. The Tanuk gathered around them in celebration. The Dawn Skyreese looked at Sira, and she looked back with quiet understanding. An alliance had formed not through war, but through trust, courage, and choices made in the darkest moments. The frontier now knew one truth clearly. When humans rose, empires trembled, and for the first time the Tanuk,